Hello dear students. Now we start with next topic, that is bryophytes. Now when we talk about bryophytes, we come to the some of the important points that these are the first land plants or terrestrial plants. But these are not a successful terrestrial plant. These are not a successful terrestrial plant. Why they are not successful terrestrial plant? Because of two reasons. Because of two reasons, and that reason are: number one, need of water for fertilization, need of water for fertilization, and second, absence of vascular tissue. So these are the two reasons because of which these plants are not considered a successful terrestrial plant. Next point, they are non-vascular amphibians of plant kingdom. As we discussed, they do not have a vascular tissue, so they are non-vascular plant, and as they need a water or fertilization, because of this they are called as what? Amphibians of plant kingdom. Okay, so that is the thing. Next, they are first embryophytes. Previously in algae we have not studied embryophyte because there is no formation of embryophytes in case of algae, but in bryophytes there is a formation of embryo by the mitosis of zygote. Zygote will undergo mitosis and carry out formation of embryo, whereas in case of algae this zygote undergo a meiosis. Next, they are first archegoniates. When we talk about sex organ, archegonia is a female sex organ of bryophyte and several other groups. But when we talk about archegonia, it was first appeared as a female sex organ in case of bryophyte. It has not found in case of algae. So because of this we call them first archegoniates. Now next, these bryophytes are the part of plant kingdom, and they are, when we talk about oldest bryophyte fossils are about 350 million years ago. (350 million years old bryophytes fossils are found. Next, if we consider some of the more characteristic, then they are cyophytes. Bryophytes are considered as cyophytes. Why? Because they live in damp, humid and shaded habitat. So they love or prefer to grow in this shaded habitat. Because of this they are considered as a psiophytes. They may form green carpet or mats on damp soil, rock, wall, tree trunks during a rainy season. So during rainy season it was found due to their growth in these particular regions. They also have a thallus body organization. Means bryophytes also have root like, stem like and leaf like structures, but they do not have true root, stem and leaf. They do not have a true root and stem and leaf, so they have a thalloid body organization. Now in this specifically root like structures are named as rhizoids. These rhizoids are for attachment. These rhizoids play a role of attachment. But these rhizoids are of two types. They can be unicellular or can be multicellular. When we talk about a unicellular rhizoids, examples are Rixia and Anthoceros. But when we talk about multicellular rhizoids, the example is mosses. And in mosses we will study a important example, that is a funaria. So this is a particular rhizoids. Next we talk about reproduction in case of bryophytes. So reproduction, it is giving birth to the young ones and a new offspring. Now when we talk about this reproduction in bryophytes, they carry out reproduction by a vegetative propagation. When we perform a vegetative propagation or reproduction, this is quite common in case of bryophyte. And in bryophyte, vegetative reproduction occurs through fragmentation, that is a breakdown of body into several plants, and they will give rise to the new organism. There can be due to tubers, there can be due to gamete, birds, and some adventitious branches, etc. Those are the several regions by which they can perform a vegetative reproduction. But only they do not perform vegetative propagation, they also carry out asexual reproduction. And when they carry out asexual reproduction, in asexual reproduction they spread asexual reproduction, but they do not carry out this commonly. Some unicellular can perform a binary fusion, but not unicellular. So in this, mitospore are absent. So be remember, there is asexual reproduction by asexual spore does not occur in case of this brown algae. But when we talk about a sexual reproduction, This sexual reproduction occur by the use of sex organ, and in this sex organ there is a male sex organ that is known as antheridium and female sex organ that is known as archegonium. When we talk about this sex organ, the sex organ of bryophyte are jacketed, and these jacket cells are, particularly if we call, they are sterile, means they are not able to reproduce or they are not able to produce a next male gamete. Now when sexual reproduction occur in case of this male sex organ that produce biflagellated male gamete, biflagellated, twisted, comma shaped, antherozoid or male gamete, antherozoid or male gamete. Term bryophyte term bryophyta was proposed by Brown. Next, Hedwig is the scientist who is called father of bryology. It is called father of bryology. And Professor Shivram Kashyap, Professor Shivram Kashyap is known as father of Indian bryology. Indian bryology. Bryophyte also have a sporophyte and gametophyte. They also have a gametophyte and sporophyte in their life cycle. So when we take a gametophyte and sporophyte in a life cycle of bryophyte, obviously we know that gametophyte is haploid whereas sporophyte is diploid. This gametophyte is a gametid producing body, but this gametophyte is a dominant partner or dominant phase of bryophyte, whereas a sporophyte is a recessive phase. Recessive phase means it is not a main phase. Gametophyte, when we talk, it is independent. In case of bryophyte, it is a independent, but sporophyte is dependent or parasitic on gametophyte. It is parasitic on gametophyte. Okay, this sporophyte is differentiated into foot, seta and capsule, and this sporophyte is also known as sporogonium. So be remember, these are the characteristic of gametophyte and sporophyte. Now based on this we can perform a life cycle of this bryophyte. So next topic which we are going to study, that is a life cycle of bryophyte. So next we are going to talk about the life cycle of this bryophytes. Now to understand life cycle and remember life cycle is easy, but you should know some of the basic concept that how to prepare a life cycle. See, some of the point with respect to bryophyte we have studied just now in general character, and we know that there are two phases in the life cycle of bryophyte, that is a gametophyte and a sporophyte. Gametophyte is dominant, sporophyte is dependent. Sporophyte is not free living, but gametophyte is a free living. And obviously gametophyte is a gamete producing body, so they have a sex organ as well. Okay, and they have biflagellated gametes. So you know this. And the one more thing, that is a sporophyte is differentiated into fruit seta capsule. So according to this and by studying this characteristic, we can frame a life cycle. So first we write what is the dominant phase. Now in bryophyte, gametophyte is a dominant phase. As we know that gametophyte is a dominant phase and it is a gamete producing body. Now gamete are produced by obviously sex organ. So where this sex organ are going to present? They are present on gametophyte. So we write a gametophyte bear sex organ. Now this sex organ are named as antheridium and archegonium, that we have studied. That male sex organ is known as antheridium. It is a male sex organ. And archegonium is known as female sex organ. Now when we draw this structure of antheridium and archegonium, the structure of antheridium is like this. So like this, they have a first thing, that is this, that is known as jacket, and with this jacket is sterile, and this is stalk. Now within this jacket you will find that there is a presence of some cells. These cells are known as androcyte or anthrozoid mother cell. What we call it? Androcyte or anthrozoid mother cell. So I am labeling it as a androcyte or antherozoid mother cell. Now if we see, this gametophyte is haploid, so obviously antheridium must be haploid, and if antheridium is haploid, then all the cells of this, there should be a haploid. So this jacket is haploid, and this androcyte or anthrozoid mother cell is also haploid, and stalk is also haploid. But when we see about the structure of this archegonium, the structure of archegonium, that is this type, and here you will see a two part, one is nape and one is venter. Now in this, these are the cover cells, these are cover cells, and this is a nape, this is a nape, and in nape part you will find a nape canal cell, and this is known as venter. Now in nape there is a presence of some cells, 3 to 4. These cells are named as NCC. They are named as NCC, and the NCC stands for nape canal cell. NCC stands for nape canal cell. Okay, so that is NCC. Now within this particular venter you will find a two type of cell. One is VCC, that is venter canal cell, and another is one that you find here. Be remember this is also a stalk. In this you will find a presence of egg or oosphere. Egg is also named as oosphere. Now again, if we consider archegonium is also haploid. So if archegonium is a female sex organ which is retained on the gametophyte and it is a haploid, then obviously the structures of archegonium are haploid. So because of this, NCC are also haploid, when neck is also haploid, venter is haploid, VCC are haploid, egg is also haploid. So we remember this particularly NCC and VCC, they are haploid. They usually ask question from this NCC and VCC, what is the ploidy of that? They are haploid in nature. Now egg is also haploid. Now you can see here that this egg is produced in a haploid body from the haploid part, so means egg is produced by mitosis. Egg should not be produced by a meiosis. So we remember in bryophyte, egg is produced by mitosis. Next, what happens? This androcyte or anthrozoid mother cell, they are haploid. They also undergo mitosis and produce biflagellated anthrozoid. Biflagellated comma shaped anthrozoid they produce. So these are the biflagellated anthrozoid. This biflagellated anthrozoid fertilize with this egg cell. They fertilize with this egg cell, and when the fertilization of this will occur, this fertilization need a water for fertilization, so it is known as zooidogamy. What we call it? Zooidogamy, that they need a water for fertilization. Now when fertilization will occur of this biflagellated anthrozoid and this egg cell, what will form? Zygote will form. Now this zygote which is formed, that become what? Diploid by the fusion. Now obviously these anthrozoid are haploid and they are producing biflagellated anthrozoid through mitosis, so they are obviously haploid, and egg is also haploid. So now this zygote become diploid. Now zygote undergo mitosis and form embryo, and due to formation of embryo we call it as a bryophyte, as a first embryophytes. Now this embryo will produce a what? Sporophyte. Now when it produces sporophyte, the sporophyte is divided into fruit seta and capsule. So when we see the diagram of this sporophyte, that sporophyte will appear like this somewhat. It will appear like this. So here you will find a foot, here you will find a seta, and here you will find a capsule. And this capsule which is here, that capsule has spore mother cell. This capsule has spore mother cell. This spore mother cell undergo meiosis and form a spore, and this spore become haploid, that is by a meiosis. Now this spore will germinate and form again a gametophyte. It will germinate and form a gametophyte. So this spore germination occur directly and form a gametophyte, that is called a direct germination. Now if this spore form a intermediate stage, that is known as protonema stage, and then it forms this gametophyte, that is a leafy stage, then this type of germination is known as indirect germination. Okay, so if we see the examples, this direct germination is found in case of the liverworts. It is found in case of liverworts. But this indirect germination is found in case of the mosses. In which mosses? So be remember, this is the some of the things with respect to the life cycle. Okay, and in this life cycle you can see all the features. Okay, now we divide it in a haploid and diploid phase. So you can see here, when meiosis is occurring, then spore is haploid and spore is forming, that is haploid. So from this, if we take on upper side, all are the haploid cells, and if we see, these are haploid till fertilization. Okay, before fertilization they are haploid. So if we see this part represent haploid or gametophytic generation, and this part represent a sporophytic generation. But when we see this life cycle, gametophytic stages or haploid stages are more and diploid stages are less. So because of this, we call this life cycle as haplodiplontic life cycle. We call a haplodiplontic life cycle. Why we call it as a haplodiplontic life cycle? Because haploid phase is dominant and diploid phase is also present, and both are particularly playing a great role in life cycle, but dominant phase is gametophyte, so the name is given like this, that is a haplodiplontic life cycle. Now after life cycle, we talk about a classification of bryophyte. And when we talk about a classification of bryophyte, this bryophyte are classified into three groups or three classes, and these three classes are Hepaticopsida, then Anthoceropsida, and Bryopsida. Now when we talk about Anthoceropsida, they are commonly known as liverworts. Anthoceropsida are commonly known as hornworts, and Bryopsida are commonly include mosses. Now when we write some of the example of this liverworts, which we are going to start first, then we will come to the Anthoceropsida and Bryopsida. In liverworts, which are a liver-like, we see some of the example, and that example are Markensia. Markensia is the most important example which we are going to study here. Then other example are Rixia. Then we have a Porella, Pellia, Spirocarps. These examples are in Hepaticopsida. When we talk about the example of Anthoceropsida, in Anthoceropsida we will talk about Anthoceros. Okay, and when we talk about Bryopsida, in Bryopsida also we will study one of the important example, that is a Funaria. Then we will talk about a Sphagnum, Polytrichum. This type of example we will study in case of mosses as well. But out of this all example, our focus mainly remain on the Markensia and Funaria, as these are two important points with respect to exam. Okay. So now we start with first liverworts. So if we start with the liverworts, then these liverworts are liver-like. So yes, liverworts are liver-like, because we will see the diagram that is of a liver-like. In this liverwort, we will discuss mainly about one of the important example, that is Markensia. And when we talk about Markensia, this Markensia is dorsi-ventrally flattened. Dorsi-ventrally flattened means dorsal and ventral surface are fixed with each other. They are not far away or separated from each other. In this, dorsal surface means upper surface and ventral surface means lower surface. When we talk about another characteristic, they are dichotomously branched. Dichotomously branched means they first get branching into the two, and these branches will again carry on into divide into the two. So if this type of branching continues into the two division, then it is known as a dichotomously branched. This Markensia is dioecious organism or dioecious liverworts. Now dioecious means both male and female sex organ are present on the separate bodies. So they have two different thallus, that is a male thallus and female thallus. They have two different thallus, that is a male thallus and female thallus. So if we draw the diagram of this, then first we go with the proper diagrammatic part. So first we draw a male thallus. When we draw a male thallus, in this you will see that it is somewhat look like this. It is dichotomously branched. It has a branching into the two. They have centrally presence of midrib, and in midrib they have a particular this cup shaped structures. Okay, next to that, here they have a root like structure. They are known as rhizoids. These are named as notches. These are notches. And when we talk about this structure, from the notch of this upper part you will find a one stalk like structure. That stalk like structure is known as anthridiophore. What we call it? Anthridiophore. And when we see this anthridiophore, over anthridiophore you will find a receptacle, and this receptacle is 8-lobed. So this anthridiophore bear a 8-lobed receptacle. Okay, so this is how you can identify by this receptacle that if it has a 8 lobe, then it is obviously a male part. They have an anthridiophore. 4 means stalk. Okay, then this are gamma cup. They are named as what? Gamma cup. This is the midrib. This is midrib, and these are rhizoids. These are rhizoids. Now rhizoids in case of this Marchantia are unicellular. They are unicellular, and this unicellular rhizoids are unbranched as well. They are unbranched. So you will find one question from this part. Okay, now so this is a diagram of this male thallus. Now it is 8-lobed receptacle. This 8-lobed receptacle has antheridial chamber. This has antheridial chamber, and this antheridial chamber has antheridium. Okay, and these antheridium are going to produce biflagellated male gamete. Okay, but when we talk about the female thallus, when we draw here a female thallus, the female thallus also look like this with some differences. When we talk about female thallus, here also you will find a midrib, gamma cup, all this thing you will find. Okay, here also you will find a rhizoids which are unicellular and branched. From notch, here also you will find a stalk. But now, as you can see here, this is known as anthridiophore because it bear antheridium in these lobes. Here also it is known as archegoniophore. Why? Because it bear archegonia. So now at the top they have a 9 cylindrical rays. They have a 9 cylindrical rays in receptacle. And when we see one ray, this one ray has a hanging archegonia. This ray has a hanging archegonia. And hanging archegonia obviously have a egg cell. So what will happen? This antheridium will produce a male gamete. That male gamete will come and will fertilize with this egg cell present in archegonium, and zygote will form here, and that zygote will develop into this particularly embryo, and then embryo will develop into the sporophyte. So there will be a formation of sporophyte like this after fertilization. So you have seen this is a male thallus and that is a female thallus, and you can observe the differences of male and female thallus. So now how fertilization will occur, that we should understand. So next topic is fertilization. So when we talk about a fertilization, in fertilization what will happen, this antheridium is there, which have androcyte, they produce biflagellated anthrozoids. Now these biflagellated anthrozoids are going to interact and react with the archegonium. But when we see the diagram of archegonium, we have seen this diagram. So during the time of fertilization, before fertilization happen, what will happen? This NCC and VCC get degenerate. So here you can see there is a presence of egg cell. Now this NCC and VCC degenerate. So this is a degenerated NCC and VCC. So this degenerated NCC and VCC are those whose effervescence comes outside. Now these effervescence are rich in potassium and sugar, and due to the potassium and sugar, this particular biflagellated amalgamate get attracted towards the neck of archegonia. Then this biflagellated anthrozoid will enter this and the fertilization will occur. Okay, so this biflagellated are anthrozoid, biflagellated anthrozoid are attracted toward neck of archegonia by chemical stimulus, that is potassium and sugar, and due to potassium sugar they are attracted, due to chemical stimulator are attracted, and this biflagellated amalgamate are completely transferred here. So this type of movement is known as chemotactic movement. It is known as chemotactic movement or chemotactic locomotion, we can say. By tactic we use a word when whole body is moving, and here biflagellated anthrozoids are completely moving through the water as a medium. So this is known as chemotactic movement. So here this egg will fertilize with amalgamate and zygote will form, and that zygote will form an embryo, and that embryo will form a sporophyte. So next we are going to talk about the structure of sporophyte. What we are going to study? Structure of sporophyte. In case of structure of sporophyte, we know that sporophyte is differentiated into foot, seta and capsule. So if we draw the structure of foot, seta and capsule, that is in case of liverworts or Markensia, you will see some structure like this. Okay, you will see a structure which is forming like this. Okay, now this actually represent a foot. This is going to represent what? Foot. Now from this foot part, seta originate. and seta is somewhat narrow compared to the foot part. When this seta elaborate and expand, it will form a whole structure that is capsule. So you can see this is a foot, this is the seta, and this is a capsule. But be remember here, from seta, from a foot part, one covering develop which cover the two parts of this sporophyte, that is seta and capsule. Okay, so here you can see like this diagram. Now when we talk about this sporophytic diagram, in this we found that there is two structures are present in capsule. One is spores, and these spores are obvious haploid which are produced by a meiosis of the spore mother cell. And another thing which we see, that is a presence of elaters. Now in these elaters you will find some of the spiral thickenings. You will find some spiral thickenings. So these are known as true elaters. Now these true elaters are present here. Now one of the important point that you should remember this with the true elater is that these elaters are diploid. These elaters are diploid and they have spiral thickening, so they are known as, they have spiral thickening, so they are named as what? True. And they play role in or help in spore dispersal. They help in dispersal of spore. Okay, so this is the thing which is found. And one more thing with respect to this elaters, that is they show a zero chasing twisting movement. They show a zero chasing. Zero chasing means they can obtain a dry condition. It shows zero chasing means they lost a water during a spore dispersal. Usually they are rich in water content, but when they need to spore dispersal, carry out a spore dispersal, at that time they lost a water and they show this zero chasing. Okay, so this is the structure of sporophyte, and we have studied till now with respect to the structure of sporophyte. Now next we talk about one structure which we have reported in the diagram of Markensia, that is gamma cup. So if we talk about gamma cup nothing but gamma cup are the structure which produce gamma. They produce gamma. Okay, and this gamma are 8 shaped. The shape of gamma is like 8 in number. They are 8 shaped green multicellular asexual bud. Now we remember this diagram of definition of this gamma cup, as they usually ask with respect to this. So what happens in case of this gamma cup? They are 8 shaped green multicellular asexual bud. Okay, so if suppose this is a gamma cup and this gamma cup has a gamma, so this gamma give rise to 2 new thallus. It can form a 2 new thallus. So if it is able to form a 2 new thallus, that is its propagation power. Okay, so now we deal with the one question related to this gamma cup. So the question is, if one gamma cup have 20 gamma, they have 20 gamma, then how many gametophyte will form? So as you see in the question, it is talking about a propagation of gamma, and how many 20 gamma, how many, you know, now we know that one gamma give rise to the two new thallus, means this 20 gamma are obviously going to form a 40 new thallus, and here thallus can be called as a gametophyte because gametophyte is dominant phase and they have a gametophytic body. So answer become 40 new thallus can be formed. So according to this type of question they usually ask, so be remember with this part. Okay, next, this liverworts are complete parasite. This liverworts are complete parasite means sporophyte is completely dependent or parasitic on gametophyte. Now completely dependent means it is dependent for water, food and habitat. All these are provided by the gametophyte. So this liverworts can be considered as a complete parasite or total parasite. They can be called as what? Complete parasite or a total parasite. So this is what about the liverworts and Marchantia we have studied. Now we should note down some of the another example and the characteristic with this. So when we talk about the another example of this liverworts, the example which come is Porella. Now this Porella has leafy appendages. These have leafy appendages on the stem like axis. So you can see here in this, it has a stem like axis, and on this you will find some of the leafy appendages like this. Okay, so this is Porella is a leafy member. It is a leafy member, we can say, of a liverworts. Next to that, if we talk about one another important example is Riccia. It is Riccia. Now Riccia is the oldest, or we can say ancient this liverworts, okay, and primitive liverworts, and in this sporophyte has only capsule. Sporophyte is not completely differentiated into foot, seta and capsule. They have only capsule. Foot and seta are absent. Foot and seta are absent. So this is all about a liverworts, and in liverworts we have mainly talked about the Marchantia. So go through each and every point, you will get a little bit information, and it will gather as one combined topic for the NEET exam. And I have covered in this all the topics, all the points which are necessary with respect to NEET exam, and I have not included the statements or point which are unnecessary for exam. Okay, so it is a confined, concise and basic and important things are covered. So please focus and continue with this part in a further topics. Okay, so here liverworts is over. Next we are going to start with the hornworts. Anthoceropsida or hornworts. Now we are not going to deal with the hornworts in much more detail, but we should have some of the information with respect to that. So one of the important example in this, that is a Anthoceros. Which example it has? Anthoceros. Now in this, if we see the characteristic, then we find that sporophytes is differentiated into foot and capsule. Seta is absent. Next point, that is rhizoids, which are root-like structure. They are present, but they are unicellular and unbranched. Okay. Next to that, if we focus, they produce pseudo-elaters. Pseudo-elater means they are not true elater. It means they are without spiral thickening. They lack a spiral thickening. Next point, they are partial or semi-parasite. Means sporophyte is not completely dependent on the gametophyte, only for purpose of what some it is dependent on this. And the next point which we discussed, that is they show algal ancestry. One of the important point, they show algal ancestry. This is the important point, please mark it. Okay, algal ancestry means they have pyrenoids in chloroplast. Now, presence of pyrenoids is a characteristic of green algae. Okay, and this character was found in Anthoceropsida as well. So because of this, we can say algal ancestry, and specifically we can call it as a green algae ancestry. Okay, we can call it a green algae ancestry as well, because it is found in case of green algae. Okay, so these are the some points with respect to Anthoceropsida and hornworts. So this much if you remember, that it's fine with respect to exam. But now after this we come to the mosses, and we have to deal with mosses in detail. Now we will discuss mosses in detail. So when we come to the talking about a mosses are nothing but a Bryopsida. Or mosses. Now when we talk about Bryopsida or mosses, we come to the important example which we have just marked in the beginning of this part also. First example which we are going to talk about, that is a Funaria, and we know that Funaria is known as cord moss or rock moss. Okay, so please remember this example. Next example is the Sphagnum, and this Sphagnum is known as cotton moss, bog moss or carpet moss. Why they are known as like this, we will study in economic importance part. Okay, next is Polytrichum. Okay, these three are the important example of this. Now when we talk about the characteristic of mosses are also semi-parasite or partial parasite, and in this particularly sporophyte is dependent on gametophyte for the water and habitat, not for food, because they develop a characteristic of food. Next in this, they have rhizoid as well, and when we talk about rhizoids are multicellular and branched. With multicellularity and branch, they also have oblique septa. Oblique septa means, suppose this is a rhizoid, a single rhizoid. Then they have a cross wall septa like this. So they have a oblique septa. Okay. They show a indirect germination. They show a indirect germination of spore due to formation of a step within that is protonema stage. So when protonema stage forms, first initially primary protonema forms, and over primary protonema a bud will develop, and that bud will develop in a particular further a leafy gametophyte. Okay, so these are the things. And next one important point that we are going to talk about, that is they have elaborate mechanism of spore dispersal. Now what this elaborate mechanism? Elaborate means here it is a complex mechanism. So we will deal with the later part why it is known as complex. But let's talk about some points with respect to elaborate. It is known as elaborate mechanism because its sporophyte has a capsule, and this capsule is divided into three parts, that is operculum, and then they have a theca, then they have a apophysis. And these divisions or parts of a capsule help in a spore dispersal, but that mechanism is somewhat complex, so we call it as a elaborate mechanism of spore dispersal. So they have elaborate mechanism of spore dispersal, so elaters are absent. Elaters are absent. Okay. So now this is the characteristic with respect to mosses or Bryopsida. Now we are going to study one particular moss in detail, that is a sphagnum. Sorry, not sphagnum. We talk about Funaria, which is known as cod moss. Now in Funaria, if you have seen, if we draw the structure of this Funaria, this have a two branches. This have a two branches. Okay, and on two branches they have a further rhizoids. Over rhizoids they have a main axis, and these two are branches are there. On these two branches you will find a presence of some leaf. You will find this presence of leaf. Okay, and this leafy part, if we consider, then this is a antheridial branch. This is a antheridial branch, and this is a archegonial branch. Now archegonial branch means it bear a archegonia at the top. Okay, they have a group of leaf here, but within the group of leaf they have a archegonia. And on the antheridial branch also they have a leaves in a group, but they have an antheridium. This antheridium will produce anthrozoid. That anthrozoid will reach to this archegonia, and fertilization will occur. Then zygote will develop. That zygote will form a what? Your part of a sporophyte, and that sporophyte will develop over this in this way. And in the sporophyte you will find here a foot, here seta, and here you will find a capsule. So this foot, seta, capsule are going to become a part of sporophyte, but this leafy structure, archegonial branch and antheridial branch, are a part of gametophyte. Now similar type of diagram is found in case of your NCERT. So please labeling of NCERT you should remember that are important. Okay, so this is the diagram of Funaria. Now next we talk about a sphagnum. So if we talk about sphagnum, sphagnum has high water holding capacity. It has a high water holding capacity. So it is used by gardeners during transportation of cut plants. Then when by within a several of years, what will happen? This sphagnum, a dry sphagnum, will carbonized so a dead parts of this sphagnum is carbonized, compressed and fossilized over thousand of years. So after 1,000 of years, they produce dark spongy mass called peat. Okay. So now what this peat is nothing but a sphagnum which is fossilized over thousands of years, and it formed a dark structure which is known as peat. Now what will happen? This peat are dried, okay, and cut to form blocks that are known as peat blocks. Now these peat blocks can be used as fuel. This peat can also be used as a good manure, and it overcomes soil alkalinity. And increases water retention as well as aeration. So these are the important points or economic importance with respect to the sphagnum. And be remember that sphagnum grow in acidic marshes. Now next we talk about some of the economic importance of this bryophyte. And we know that, or mosses, we know that they help in prevention of soil formation. As bryophytes, especially mosses, form a dense mat over the soil and prevent a soil erosion against the falling rain. Next, if we talk, they help in soil formation as well. How? So mosses are important link in plant succession, and specifically in the xeric succession is a development or origination of life in a barren area, and if it is occurring in a dry area, then we call it as a xeric succession. And in xeric succession, it is said that lichen paves the way for mosses. Means in dry habitat or in a xerophytic habitat, first lichen will come and then it will develop a habitat for the mosses, and mosses will enter. Next point, they also help in water retention. As we talked about a dry sphagnum which has a great water holding capacity, this characteristic is employed for the what, a water retention by the gardener as well as, okay. And sphagnum moss was used in place of absorbent cotton. Sphagnum is used in place of absorbent cotton, so it is known as cotton moss. So it is known as cotton moss. Now it is known about sphagnum that it also take part in building a soil in a rock crevices, okay, and it growth of sphagnum ultimately fills the pond and lake with soil. It also help in a particularly filling of pond and lake. So this is all what we have studied till now about the bryophytes. We have dealt with its general characteristic, their life cycle in detail, liverworts and particular hornworts, and then we have talked about this mosses. So that's all about bryophytes. I hope you got all the information which is necessary for the NEET, and please go through this with chapter lectures, and in a lecture series you will get more information. Now after this, in next we will start with the pteridophyte.